Acevedo. Today I'll be talking about all the books I read in the month of May. I'm sorry for the fan, but it's very hot. Having windows open isn't helping, so I have my fan on, and excuse me for the noise, but I can't survive it out. But we're going to be talking about the books I read in May, not about my fan. But the month of May was a weird month for me. I was slumpy for most of it, then at the end I read a whole lot. Most of what I'm going to talk about today are galleys got from NetGalley. I try to read those the month before they come out. Sometimes I get things wrong, which we'll discuss later, but I mostly try to read them before they come out, the month before they came out. And because I was so slumpy throughout most of the month, I basically spent like that last chunk of the month that I read a lot in, catching up on the galleys I had to read for this month. Let's just get started with the stats. So for the stats of this month, in total I read 13 books, of which I owned 4, and which amounted to a total of 4,937 pages read. Then for star ratings, I have 3 2 stars, 4 3 stars, 4 4 stars, and 2 5 stars. I read 11 books by female authors and 2 books by male authors. I read 7 YA books and 2 adult books. And for genre, I have 4 fantasies, 3 historical fictions, 3 contemporaries, 1 horror, 1 poetry collection, and 1 dystopian. Then for my TBR challenges, which I actually didn't really pay much attention to during the month because of the slump, but I still completed them all except to pick a book for my TBR job. But either way, I read 6 books out of my comfort zone, 1 sequel, 1 new book, and 1 TBR facts. I read quite a lot of my comfort zone, mainly because I count historical fictions that are out of my comfort zone, and I got a couple of galleys that were historical fiction. I also have 1 reread and 1 DNF to talk to you about. Let's go. The first book I finished in the month of May is The Fellowship of the Ring by J.R.R. Tolkien, which I ended up giving 2 out of 5 stars. How do I explain the plot of this book? Okay, so basically this book is about Frodo, who receives the One Ring to rule them all from his uncle, I believe. I'm so sorry. And he has to go on a quest to destroy it. That's basically what's going on, because the ring is injured. I was planning to continue on to the series already in May, but because of the slump it didn't really happen, because these books need my focus and attention. So yeah, I might continue on with it in June. I don't know yet. So the Fellowship of the Ring, I wasn't the biggest fan of, because I feel like it just was very slow and dragged out, and I don't know, I felt bored quite often and like zoned out quite a lot while reading it. But at the same time, I found myself whenever I put this book down, I found myself thinking about the world and these characters, and like, I don't know, I do think I am like starting to love this world and these characters, and that I will enjoy this in its full. But just the Fellowship of the Ring, I'm just kind of like, it was slow. And the next book I finished is The Queen's Secret, a novel of England's World War II Queen by Karen Harper, which is a galley I received from that galley that I gave 4 out of 5 stars. This one came out in May, but I started it last month and then I carried it on into this month. I finished it. This is about the Queen of England during the Second World War and her secrets. I don't really know how better to explain the plot of this book. That's kind of it. And yeah, I did end up really enjoying this. I think normally I'm not the biggest fan of World War II fiction, because I just think it is something that's very overdone and done in the same way, I feel like, a lot. But I think this gave an interesting perspective on that. It also liked that it wasn't completely war focused. We saw first a lot about like the queen's life, like prior becoming a queen and like stuff like that as well, just like during the war, and just like about herself and then like her relationship with the king and with her children. And I liked that a lot. The secret aspect was kind of the most disappointing part of this book, because I just felt like it was very underwhelming for how much it was built up. I do think like the war was integrated well into the story. This book covers the whole entire war, the beginning to the end, and I think it was interesting to see it like escalate. I do I'm curious to check out more World War II fiction, just for more like interesting perspectives. So if you have any recommendations for that, leave it in the comments section below. Then the next book I read this month is Blood Promise by Richelle Mead, which is the 4th book in the Vampire Academy series. I wanted to try and finish the series this month. Didn't happen because of the slump, but it's definitely on the agenda for June. I gave this 5 out of 5 stars. case that wasn't obvious. This series, in case you didn't know, is about two girls. One is a Morrow and one is a Vampire. A Morrow is a mortal vampire with elemental magic, and a Vampire is a half-human, half-vampire that is kind of usually is trained to be guardians to the Morrow, because the Morrow are kind of like royalty. And we follow these two. We follow Rose, who is a Vampire, and is best friends with Rose, who is a Morrow. And kind of the plan is for them, for Rose to become a guardian in the future, and they attend a academy for vampires, hence the name. But 2 years before the start of the first book, the two of them went away because Rose just didn't feel safe at the school anymore, and the book basically starts when guardians from the school catch up to them and drag them back to the school. And we figure out that there's a lot more dangers going on in the school than the real world, and shit's messed up. There's also a third kind of vampire, which are the Squigler, which are like your typical vampire, and they basically attack the Morrow, which is also why we need the guardian protection. And yeah, that was probably the worst description I've ever done of this series. I really liked this installment. It dealt a lot with grief and getting over the events of the previous book. I liked how that was all dealt with in this book. I liked kind of getting out of our usual environment and exploring more of this world. And from what I know, there's some hints like dropped in this that is for the spin-off series, I believe, and might come back more into the series, I don't know, but I know that certain stuff that mentioned in this is like big parts of that spin-off series. So it made me excited to read that. And yeah, I just think this took the plot in an interesting direction. Then the next book I read is another guy from that guy, which is A Song Below Water by Bethany C. Morrow, which I gave 2 out of 5 stars. This book is about two girls. One is a siren in a world where sirens are seen as very dangerous, and so she has to hide the fact that she's a siren. And then the other girl is like her adopted sister, and kind of when she was a kid, like something weird happened to her, and since then these like just weird tales have kind of been following her, and especially now more to a certain extent of the books of sales seem to be getting worse and worse and worse, and there's like no real explanation behind it all. And basically in the beginning of the book, a black woman is killed by her husband, and it's kind of excused away, that murder, because it is rumored that that woman was a siren, and that just sets in motion like a lot of things. I didn't really like how this book was done. I really liked the premise of this book. I thought that would be so... First of all, I just read like black sirens in like a real world setting. I was like, damn, that sounds amazing. And then I heard that there was going to be like social commentary involved with like the sirens and stuff like that, and I was like, oh, okay, that's also cool. And I started reading it, and I was like, oh, this is gonna be pretty cool. And then I kept reading. I was like, oh, I understand nothing that's going on. That's great. And then I kept reading. I was like, oh, none of these characters are developed. Even better. Oh, these social justice threats are going nowhere. Great. Some of these social justice. That's like a protest in this book, and I feel like it was like, it felt a bit jarring because it felt outside of the plot a little bit. So I feel like the build up to that could have been like better or something. It seemed to come out of nowhere, and it didn't really fit in with the plot, in my opinion. And then, like I said, that woman that was murdered by her husband and was like excused away a little bit because she was allegedly a siren. I feel like that plot thread is kind of forgotten about, like halfway through, and there's a couple of plot threads that are like introduced that are just like forgotten and not really resolved. None of like the mythical creatures in this book are like explained, which is very annoying because I wanted to go Google the ones I didn't know, but the author constantly kept repeating that like the known mythos isn't correct. And I was like, okay, that's not helping me at all, because you're not telling me which, like, how your mythical creatures work. Then besides the two main characters, like none of the characters were really developed and like explained or anything, so their motivations seemed to come out of nowhere, and that made stuff very confusing as well. Then I fell into a reading slump where I didn't read for like over a week. So I saw that I had a pile of galleries, well, not a pile because it's ebooks, but I had a lot of galleys that I still need to read. I was like, how do we solve this? And I decided to make myself like a kind of like day-long readathon of trying to read as many galleys as I could in that day, and I ended up reading 2, which was so spectacular for me then. And after that, it put on a shale event of just reading so many books. So I'm very grateful for that day. But I started off by reading again by E. Lockhart, which I give 2 out of 5 stars. This is about a girl who, after her little brother like had a drug overdose, they like moved to this other city, and where he could go to rehab, and their father started working at this private school, so she could go there as well. And like now during the summer, they're staying there because their father has like work to do, and she has taken on a job of dog walking the dogs left behind with the professors who are on vacation now. And one day while walking the dog, she bumps into this guy who was also walking a dog, and they have already met at a party like ages ago, and they re-meet, and this is the story of like their romance. But here's the catch: we also get like glimpses of parallel universes in which stuff happened differently. I think E. Lockhart isn't the author for me because this is the 3rd book I've read by her, and I was disappointed by all. I think the romance was a bit underdeveloped. The parallel universes kind of didn't really feel like they had a point to me, kind of just felt more like an anxious brain coming up with different scenarios rather than parallel universes. And eventually I think the ending, well, I think it could have been like a cute love story, but nothing much more. But the ending was just so disappointing to me and so unsatisfying. It's like, oh, okay, why don't we do all the rest? I do think it has a strong sibling dynamic, and I think it's very interesting, and how that develops throughout the book. I think that's the most interesting part of this book. Then the next book I read is Night Owls and Summer Skies by Rebecca Sullivan, which I gave 2 out of 5 stars. This is again another guy from a guy that I had higher hopes for this. I thought this was gonna be a cute go love story set in camp, dealing with a bit of trauma. Wasn't that. This book is about a girl who a couple of years ago had a traumatic experience at this camp, and since then just hasn't wanted to return at all, and just bad experience. It has terrible anxieties, homeschooled by her father because of it. Her parents are split up, and she is supposed to spend all of the summers with her mother, which her mother is not accepting of her sexuality, so she doesn't want to go, but her father forces her to go anyway. And then the mother kind of lures her in with, hey, we're going on this cruise, and they step in this car with a strange man, and they stop at this campsite where a couple of years ago she had this traumatic event happen, and she's actually being dropped off for the summer at this camp while her mother is going on a honeymoon, because this man actually is the guy she married, which her daughter knew nothing about, by the way. So of course, main character very upset, very traumatized. There's a love story, which I think wasn't that well done. I feel like there could have been a bit more development for that, but eventually like the woman is like the least of my problem. My problem mainly lay with the way trauma was dealt with, which I again can't speak on because I don't have PTSD and I've had a super traumatic experience. Okay, editing here. Sorry, I look like a mess. I just want to jump in really quick because I think I didn't explain my problem with how trauma was dealt with in this book very well, so here we go. Again, I'm not an expert on this, so I could be wrong, but it just felt a little bit icky to me, because first of all, I think that the reason for all her trauma, and this might sound very insensitive, was very little, especially considering all of the consequences it had in her life, but I just in general felt like it was a small thing that had huge consequences, and I don't know, I feel like I was expecting something worse. And then for the rest, I feel like the main character got over it very quickly, which I also just had a problem with, because if you have this terrible trauma that has been influencing your life so badly for so long, it isn't gone in like 5 seconds. I don't believe that. As well as I feel like the characters around her, just besides her father, like nobody seemed to really care. Like whenever she was doing something and she was like, oh, this is triggering my trauma, I better speak up that I'm fucking scared. And it was like, it's no big deal, just do it. And I don't know, that felt all of that just felt icky to me. And then for the rest, again, none of the side characters' motivations were really explained well, and it kind of felt weird. And then my main problem with this book is that it would jump from scene to scene in like the same paragraph with like no explanation. So you would move from like one scene to the other without like in the same paragraph, like literally in the same paragraph, and it just wouldn't be an indication. It would be so confusing. The next book I read this month is Misery by Stephen King, which probably wasn't the best book to start when I was in a slump, but I did it anyway and I finished it. I gave it 4 out of 5 stars. I really ended up enjoying this. This book is about a author named Paul, and he gets into this terrible car crash and like nearly dies, but he is saved by his biggest fan, Annie, who takes him to her home and takes care of him. But at the same time, right before this, Paul's new book came out in his Misery series, in which he killed off the main character Misery. And whilst Paul is in the care of Annie, Annie finishes the book and thinks it's horrendous and forces Paul to rewrite Misery's fate. This is fucked up. Oh my god, this is my first Stephen King. Hi, how are you doing? I've seen a lot of guides on how to read Stephen King, like what's the best thing, and I just thought that starting with the book that sounded the most interesting would be the best, so I started with this one because this one sounded the most interesting to me. And wow, okay, this book is very small scale. This just takes place in a house with 2 characters, like that's it. But it's so gruesome, and Annie got on my skin so much. Like how she excused herself, how she did so terrible things, and I still thought she was in the right. It just, it was, and then Paul, I didn't like him at all. He was a very egotistical human being and thought he knew everything better than, you know, other people, and just, I don't know, his character didn't sit right with me at all, but I felt for him so strongly, and I feel like his thought process, because we follow his perspective, his thought process was so well described, and I felt everything he felt. And like I said, Ellie Wilkes is such a disgusting human being, and just like, and her, and learning more about her and getting more scared of her, it just got under my skin, basically is what I'm saying. And this book is pretty slow because not a lot happened, but still I felt so on the edge of my seat throughout the entire book, and I was scared of whenever something was gonna happen. And this book was so brilliantly done, and I really liked the ending, because that's a main complaint I've heard about Stephen King, is that it isn't good at its endings, but I really like this one. I might have liked a little bit more, but I'm also satisfied with the way it ended. The only thing I didn't really like with this book is that this does have like inserts of the book Paul is Wiley while in captivity, and I just don't think that was necessary at all. It didn't add anything to the story. It kind of slowed down it a lot, and it just took me out of the suspense. And yeah, that's why it's a 4-star. I'm really excited to read more Stephen King now, so if you have any recommendations, let me know in the comment section below. Then the next book I read is The Court of Miracles by Kerster. This is another gallery from NetGalley, and give it 3 out of 5 stars. This is a retelling of Les Miserables. Officially, I don't really know how close it is to that story because I haven't experienced it in any way. I'm so sorry. Okay, so editing me again. I didn't explain this book well at all, so I'm gonna try it again. So basically, this book takes place during the French Revolution in France, obviously, and basically, in this world, there's kind of like this underworld, like different guilds, and we follow a girl who is a part of the Guild of Thieves, and right before she joins her guild, her sister gets taken by, is bought off by the leader of the Guild of Flesh, which is basically a guild dealing in slavery, even though it's officially abolished. It still happens in the underworld. And then we skip forward a couple of years where she has befriended this other girl and kind of is like a second sister to her. The leader of the Flesh Guild has his eyes on this girl, so our main character does everything to protect this girl, as well as take revenge upon this man, and yeah, chaos ensues. It's still a shit explanation, but I don't know how to explain it better without spoilers, so there you go. I was a bit underwhelmed by this book. I think it was a little bit too fast moving, like nothing really was developed that well. I wasn't engaged by the story at all, because everything just came to the main character so quickly and so easily that I was like, oh, yay, no stakes. I was bored by this book mostly, and more I don't have to say about it. I'm sorry. Next book I read is Summer Darlings by Brooke Lea Foster, which is not a guy I got from my galley. I miswrote today, so I should have read this last month, but here we are. And I give this 4 to 5 stars. This book is about, it takes place in the 1960s, and it's about a girl who comes from like a poor family, but she is able to go to college on a scholarship, and then for the summer she's going to work for this family at Martha's Vineyard as a babysitter basically. And the problem kind of is that she lost her scholarship and now has to find like a way to continue on and for the next school year and how to live, and but it's also about like the world of the rich, which is what I enjoyed the most. So it's one of my guilty pleasures in everything fiction is the witch and drama. One of my favorite show probably running right now is Dynasty, which is about a very rich family and their drama. I love the 2004 series where Catch Mickey, which is again about rich people and their drama. Gossip Girl wasn't the biggest fan of, but I liked the concept of it. And I think this was done really well. I especially like having like the outsider perspective come into like this rich world and kind of first idolize it and then see it fall apart. I like how that falling apart happened in this book. Happened very slowly and had like a big catalyst at the end. I like how that was done a lot. I really like these characters. I think they were done very well. I think the setting was done very well. I don't know much about 1960s or Martha's Vineyard, but I think either way I felt in that world. And yeah, there's also a romance in here which I don't really know how to feel about. I feel like it was well done, but at the same time I feel like we could have had a little bit more of it. Some strong friendships were in here as well. I like that. And yeah, mainly my main problem with this book was that the ending just felt very convoluted and out of nowhere, and I don't really got the point of why it had to be like that. The next book I read is When the Stars Wrote Back by Trista Mateer, which I give 3 to 5 stars. Is a poetry collection. I read 2 previous poetry collections by Trista Mateer before. One, Honeybee, I didn't really like that much. I didn't really connect with that much. And then Aphrodite Made Me Do, which came out last year, and I absolutely loved. I gave this one 3 out of 5 stars. I don't know if I said that, but basically I don't know a lot about poetry, so when I am reviewing one, it's basically on my connection to the collection and how I felt reading these poems. And I just didn't really connect with this one that much. I could tell that like the poems are very personal to her, but at the same time I felt like it was a bit repetitive. I feel like this one read a lot like a personal journal, as in it felt very spur of the moment and just like one day I feel like this, the next day I feel like this, then I feel like the previous day again, and it felt a bit jumbled. I did really love the art throughout this collection. And then we have the last galley for today, that's More Miracle Than Bird by Alice Miller, which I give 2 to 5 stars. Okay, editing me again. Again, terrible synopsis, so we're doing it again. So this book takes place during the First World War and follows the wife of poet W.B. Yeats. Don't know if I pronounced it correctly, I'm so sorry. But this book is basically the story of them falling in love, as well as her working at a hospital during the First World War, and there's a soldier there that has a crush on her, and it's a little bit about him as well. And then there is some parts of like the occult thrown in there because plot, and yeah, that's basically it. I contemplated at the beginning of this if this should be a 3 or a 2 star, but eventually landed on a 2 star because I have more problems with it than just kind of feeling like mad about it. It's definitely not one I'm gonna remember at all. I barely remember anything from it now, and it's only been a couple of days since I finished it. I just don't get the romance, which sounds terrible because I know it's a real life romance. It's based on 2 people that actually fell in love and got married, but just the way it was done in this book, I didn't get it. I didn't get it at all. And then we did get little inserts of like the perspective of that patient in the hospital that I talked about, and I felt like that made that character very unlikable, and I just wish those wouldn't have been in there. There's also some flashbacks to earlier on, and those felt a little bit confusing and unnecessary as well, so I don't really know what that was done either. There wasn't really a plot to this in my opinion. There were some paranormal things in there, but I felt like it was more of an afterthought rather than the plot really. Then the next 2 books I'm going to talk about, I'm going to lunch together for a bit. I did a reading vlog for these 2 books. I'll leave it down below. It's spoilery, so if you don't want to be spoiled for the series, don't watch it. But basically, I started the selection we read. I started off with the selection by Kiera, and then I went on to the elite, and I DNF'd the elite. Why? Watch that video. But this series is basically The Bachelor but royalty, where 35 girls from this country sign up. Like, no, every girl from this country between X and ages can sign up, and 35 get selected to be in like this selection process to become the queen, to marry the prince. And we follow our main character, America. Also has a caste system, once being royals, 8 being homeless people, and everything in between being something else. And then we follow America with a 5, and she enters, like, not really expecting she is going to go in to actually be selected, but she gets selected, and there's a love triangle, and yeah. Gave this 45 stars. I don't know if I said that, but I did still really enjoy this. I was afraid that I wasn't gonna like it, because this is one of the first books I read while getting into YA. This series means a lot to me because it got me into YA, got me into BookTube, and so many other things. I was scared that I wouldn't like it as much now, but I still really enjoyed this. I think this is a great, like, guilty pleasure read. It isn't really that entertaining, but it isn't really that quality good, but it is very entertaining. It has a great romance in here, kind of. I love Maxon with my entire heart, and I would literally die for him. He's amazing. This could have been one book. That's all I have to say about it for now. And I didn't have to delete because I was angry at every single word on every single page, and I didn't want it to ruin my previous existing love for the series. Then we've already arrived, luckily, to the last book out this month, and that's Club Land by Acevedo. I gave this 5 out of 5 stars. It is probably my favorite book I read this month. I'm so glad I still squeezed it in on that last day. This is a book told in verse about 2 girls. One lives in the Dominican Republic and one lives in New York. And they share the same father, don't know it. Usually the father is in New York 13 times of the year and sends money over to the Dominican Republic, just saying he's in America for work and better opportunities and shit like that. And then during the summer he goes to the Dominican Republic, tells his family in New York he's going there for like business as well, and you know, shit happens. And then basically this book starts when one summer this dad is on a plane to the Dominican Republic, and the plane crashes and everyone on the flight dies. That causes for these 2 girls to have to deal with the loss of their father, but also with discovering they have a sister. I really love Elizabeth Acevedo's writing. I still need to read With the Fire on High because I haven't really come across a copy in a bookstore, but I gotta make a priority of doing that because I love the Poet Axe. I love this one again, so I'm assuming I love her stuff. I think she discusses the topic she discusses very well, and it makes such an impact on you. Another thing I really like that this book did very well is the distinction between the 2 perspectives. It was so clear to me, and I was a bit scared of that because it's told in verse, and I don't think I've ever read a dual perspective verse novel. I could be wrong, but I can't remember when exactly. So I was a bit scared of how that was gonna go, but I felt myself, I could tell immediately which of the 2 characters was talking, and I think that was done so well. I liked how these 2 characters, like, very different, had a very different life, are just very different people, but there are still so many similarities between them, just like experiences with their father, or just like how they react to certain things. And I thought that was so interesting. Also to see like different people react to like the same event, because yes, we follow these 2 girls, but like we also see the reaction of like their environment to this guy's death, and I think it was so interesting to see like how everybody like deals with grief differently. That was today's video. If you read any of these books, let me know in the comment section down below what you thought of them, as well as what are some of the books you read in the month of May. And I guess I'll see you guys next time. Good.